My very first one was a guy by the name of Harry Anderson, and his strong suit was support for teachers. You could talk to anybody in that school, and Harry Anderson had your back. If a parent called and something was going on, his default position was he supported you. If you were right, he supported you. If you were wrong, he supported you, but you had a conversation privately afterwards. Okay, here's how we can do this better next time. And he would always prevent problems because he was a good teacher about, if you run into this is a good way to solve. Come here, I got to make this phone call to this parent. I want you to hear how I handle it. He said, hey, this is Mr. Anderson up here at Goodman School. We had a little problem with your son in English class today. I just wanted to call and give you a chance to handle it at home before we have to handle it at school. And he'd get off the phone. He'd say, as a parent, I'd like to have one chance to handle it at home. And then if I couldn't, I can't really blame the school for how they handle it. When I had my own school, that was one thing I never forgot.
All right, welcome to another edition of the Living Boldly with Purpose, and I am Dr. B. I'm your host, and I get excited every time I do these. Dr. Frank, I don't know, how many of these you've done, or it's just when I get to meet new people that I don't know that are doing stuff that are maybe even living the life that I hope I get to live someday. It's just fun to just kind of hear. And so, I was explaining, to Dr. Frank, he lives in Alabama, and I was explaining that we had just been on a trip there. And so, I feel like, I've been to Alabama now twice in my life, last year, the year before, when I've taken these trips. But I kind of feel like, Alabama's my place now. Like, I like going there. I keep talking to people from Alabama. So it's really fun to be able to talk to somebody who's from there, and somebody who also has a doctorate in education, which I do as well. When we think about educational leadership, and when I was a professor, and he was a professor, and I was an administrator at university, and I know he was doing some administration stuff as well. And so, when we just think about our lives, and one of the things he told me is now he's kind of retired from the 9 to 5 and the education portion. Although once you are a teacher, you are never not a teacher. I wish I could say you're always educating. And so he's doing things, he's staying alive. One of the things that, and maybe you can attest to this, when I see folks that retire and all they do is just like watch TV and make sure the yard looks good and that kind of stuff, they seem they seem to just kind of get bored with that after about 6 months or a year, right?
Yeah, superintendent I once said, he said, Frank, before I retired, he said, Frank, now when you retire, you're going to have you something to do. He says, you can just watch so many episodes of The Price is Right.
Oh my gosh. I know. I mean, I think my in-laws are on like the third time through the 8 seasons of Blue Blood. And I'm like, wow, this is, but they continue to do stuff. They're enjoying this the first, he's only been retired for now like a year now. So now I'm starting to see him out doing some woodworking and doing some, stuff that keeps busy. My dad is 86 now, and he's out running track meets still. So he's working out every day, and that's
the way to do it.
Yeah, that is.
You've got to get up with intention. There's got to be something to get you out of bed in the morning.
Gosh.
The people I've known who have just lived and continued to live, the ones who have continued to live are the ones who have continued to live.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I do a living trust as part of, my business. And so I sit down with, and reverse mortgages. So I kind of live in this senior world. And in the last 2 weeks, I've met with 2 folks that have just turned 90 in this last month in April, May, in May. I'm like, well, I don't even know my months now, right? So in May, they both turned 90, but they're the most active people. Like one, I had to meet at the country club because she was golfing that day, and I had to wait till she got done golfing to sit down with her at the table. And I'm going, this is how I want to live my senior years. I just turned 60 in March. And so now I'm starting to think of, what's that going to look like? And I don't even have a vision of what retirement is. I don't know what retirement is because I don't work for anybody. I mean, work for me, and I have my own businesses and stuff. But so I'm like, I don't see myself stopping them. I'm more excited about life right now than I ever have been. I'm doing, trust, and I'm, teaching people how to do podcasts, and I'm running around in the streets, and oh my gosh, I'm like, this is fun. In fact, my speaking stuff is starting to take off. I'm like, I'm smarter now than I've ever been. So I might as well use it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And enjoying it. The older I get, the more I realize the purpose of life is to enjoy life. And if you enjoy what you're doing, then you're in the right place.
Yeah.
And if you don't like what you're doing, I don't care how much money you're making.
Oh my gosh.
You're miserable with your days.
Yeah, no. You are so right. So thank you for being on today, Frank, Dr. Frank. I love the fact that you're here. I love the fact that you are in that portion of life that you're in, because I want to hear about it. But I give all my guests a chance to tell their story, and I tell them their story can start anywhere in life. Some people start at, hey, I came out of my mama's womb, and I was a fireball from there all the way till they are now. And then some people just say, hey, I went to college, I grew up, it was cool that I went to college, and now I did this as my career. I think people love to hear how people got to where they're at instead of just what they do. But I want that to be your story, the way you want to tell it, however you want to tell it, and I can't wait to hear some of the things you've been able to do in life. And then after that, we'll just kind of chop it up. And so some people take 5 minutes. And then some people, like my last guest on last Friday, we were at 58 minutes, and he was like, my show's only an hour. They're like, hey, we're going to have to come back.
You're going to have to wrap this up, huh?
You're going to have to wrap this up. But it was good. I mean, all the things that had happened, and he broke his back, and all these things that had happened in his life, and he had a $4 million house and lost it, and then got another one, and it was an interesting story, but we didn't get to talk about anything else. But you're more than welcome to take as much time as you would like, because to me, this is the most important part of our show. So the floor is yours. Go ahead and tell your story, and then we'll move on from there.
Right. Well, I won't quite start with, that I came out of the womb. Okay. But let's fast forward to that summer between elementary and junior high school.
Okay.
I signed up for the band. I came from a musical family, and my grandmother especially was a big supporter of the arts. So it was kind of a foregone conclusion I would join the band. Well, that first day I put that flute together, and I could not, for the life of me, get a sound out of that thing. Now, I had been a good student in elementary school, so school kind of came easy for me. It wasn't something I really had to work at. But man, not being able to get a sound, and the other kids could. So I go home, and I start practicing, and then things came along pretty quickly, and I kept practicing, and things really came along. So the band director said, you need to be practicing 30 minutes a day. So I thought, well, if he says everybody needs to be practicing 30 minutes a day, I need to practice an hour a day. And I did. And seeing myself go from not being successful at all to being very successful, and what I did to get from point A to point B, I think that was one of those life lessons that it's just raised its head again and again and again, that if I do now what I did then, that I'll be successful at the things that I do. So wound up deciding I wanted to be a junior high band director. And so I, met people and read books and so forth and so on, and had a successful 12 years. I thought I'd be a junior high band director for 30 years. That was going to be my purpose in life, be the best junior high band director in the history of junior high band directors. And so a few years into that, 8 years into that, to be precise, got a new principal at the middle school where I was. And if you had asked me, Frank, would you ever like to be a principal? I said, no, I don't want that headache. You leave me with my band room and my band, and I'm going to be just fine.
Hey, it's Dr. B, and let me ask you something just here real quick. Are you tired of doing the same thing over and over and not getting the results you want? Are you serious about making some changes this year that will impact you in a huge way? Maybe you're putting out content right now and it's not turning into customers, or maybe you're uploading videos, but you're not sure why or how it's even gonna help. I've seen a lot of people that are making a whole bunch of cold calls to the wrong people and no one's answering. No one wants to talk to you. It might just be that you're just doing what you've been doing and crossing your fingers hoping it finally works this year. But let me tell you what, that is not a strategy and it will continue not to work. That's why I created the Podcasting Challenge, and it's coming up fast. In just a few days, I'm going to walk you through the mindset, the tool set, and the skill set you need to create a powerful podcast. That's right, a podcast. You won't believe what a podcast can do. One that builds real value and creates new clients. And if you grab a VIP ticket, you'll get to join me for a daily Zoom Q&A sessions where I'll personally answer your questions and help you tailor everything to your goals. This is your moment. This is your year. Go to thepodcastingchallenge.com right now and save your seat. The link is in the show notes and the description. Thank you for watching these podcasts. Now let's get back to the conversation.
But when Dr. Henry Clark came to that middle school, which was already a very high-performing middle school, and when I saw the difference one person could make in a situation that was already high-performing, I thought, I need to rethink this. And so he kind of became my mentor. And a few years later, I'm a middle school assistant principal. And then several years after that, I'm an elementary school principal. Got my doctorate in there during the time that I was an assistant principal. And one of the real turning points in my life came during that time as I was working on my doctorate. You got the dissertation. So what are you going to do? Because the dissertation is the thing that wipes people out.
It is.
Nobody washes out of a doctoral program for failure to show up to class on Tuesday night from 6 to 9. Yep. You take classes, you've had classes, some are harder than others. That's not what washes people out. It's the dissertation that washes people out. So I thought, well, I've always been kind of an organized guy and, manage my time well. Mm-hmm. So I wound up doing a study of the time management practices of Alabama principals. And that was the thing that launched what I'm doing today, because I realized through all the research that, man, there's a lot of stuff written about time management for the business world, but not much for education. So we're having to take stuff written for education and apply it. I'm thinking, let's go the other way. Let's talk about education and then expand it. So I put together a little workshop for teachers and administrators that started to grow. I started to write articles for magazines. Next thing I know, I get a call from the president of Ion Education who says, I read this article that you wrote. I read this review that you happened to do for one of the books that we published. I Googled you and found your blog. And I want to ask you a question. Have you ever thought about writing a book? Because if you have, I would love to work with you. And a year later, it was published. And so that's about the time that I thought, I'm 50 years old. I can now draw a full retirement and still be young enough to do something else.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I knew what that something else was. I mean, when the president of a publishing company, people say, I'd love to write a book when the time is right. Well, when the president of a publishing company calls you and says, I'd love to work with you,
time is right.
Doesn't give you
time is right.
So I retired to give sort of this second year a chance to grow. And so over the last 15 years now, I've been as far east in the United States and as far west and as far south and as far north as you can go. I've been to Canada over and over. I've been to Australia. Imagine going halfway around the world to talk to principals about things like how to get their email to zero every day, how to get their desk clean, just handling all those little day-to-day things that keep you from the purpose of why you got into the principalship anyway, which was being the educational leader, being the learning leader. So it has been a fantastic ride. And I still am able to keep my hand in the band world. No joke. 5 minutes before we got on this today, I hung up from an old band director who knew me when I was in junior high. And
Oh
we
my
were talking
gosh.
about a little project going on now in the band world. So that's kind of me, from kid who couldn't get the sound out of the flute to the band
Yeah.
director who became the principal, who became and global gurus. And I'll say this, there are times in life when you should have gotten something and you didn't.
Mhm.
That pretty girl, she should have gone to the prom with you, but she wound up going with that other jerk and you missed out on that. Well, then other times in life, you get something, you probably didn't deserve it, but you got it anyway, so I'll take it. So 4 years in a row, Global Guru's top 30 named me, not only in the top 30 in the time management category, but number one in the time management category. Do I deserve it? Absolutely not. There are plenty of people that do what I do as well as I do it, but I'll take it.
Yeah, because when and it's so interesting that you said that. Well, first I thought you were going to say before you got on the call with me, you just finished practicing for an hour. So I know that. Yeah, but one of the things that just hit me when you said that, and you talked about the difference between because when I think of time management for businesses, I think of Stephen Covey, right? I think of all the 7 highly effective, whatever of management. But when you think about education, it's a totally different world. When you think of the amount of interruptions in a day and the amount of kids that do things that are that will interrupt your day. My son-in-law right now he just left being a principal at an elementary, and then this last year he was a vice president and started a VP, I guess, or AP, whatever we're calling ourselves now, at a high school, and he's in charge of discipline. And every time I give him a call, there's some other thing going on that wasn't expected. It wasn't there. It's like, how do you get things done during the day? And so all the time that he's spending, that he has to hurry up, and then the games that he has to go to, and all those different things that are part of it, there's got to be a huge niche of folks.
And so much of it is, knowing where you're going. What are the Stephen Covey with his big rocks? What are the big rocks?
Yeah.
Being able to take those big rocks and make pebbles out of them with what's the phone call that I could make in 5 minutes that's going to take me one step closer to where I want to go? What's the one email I can write? What's the one, so that during the day, amid all of those little interruptions, that if you've got 5 minutes, that you can do a 5-minute thing that's going to take you one step closer to where you need to be. I know exactly where you're coming from. As a middle school assistant principal, I think, we want to get out and get in classrooms, do observations. And my principal at that time and I got together and we split them up. So we've been doing this many observations during the year. First 3 years I was a middle school assistant principal. It was like, as soon as this gets done, I can really concentrate on the observations. And then that would get done. Then there'd be some other thing. As soon as I get that done, I can concentrate on the observation. May comes around. I'm still going, man, I got to get into those observations. So my last year there, and I'm starting to finish the doctor. I'm working hot and heavy on the dissertation. I'm going, man, here the time management guy doesn't have time to get into the classrooms to do the observations. So I said,
I love it.
We're going to just totally redo this thing. Let me take my paper planner, which back in the day, that's what we all had, was the paper planner.
Yep,
Let me decide what observations I want to do when. Let me go ahead and we're going to put those in the calendar and they're going to happen. So if some kid gets sent to the office and I need to be in a classroom 5 minutes from now to do that observation,
you don't have to wait.
We're just like, son, have a seat. I'll be back when I finish doing something important. Well, what about me? What am I going to do? I said, you're going to sit there.
You're going to sit.
You don't automatically become the most important kid in the school.
I love it.
When you're not behaving and you get yourself kicked out. So you sit there and I'll be back when I get this thing done.
I love that.
And it worked. By November, I'd done more observations than I'd done the entire year.
Yeah.
So, I tell people, Your time is your time. Nobody's going to look out for your time, and they shouldn't. That's up to you. And if you want to let other people fritter it away, then you let them fritter it away. I mean, some of the things I do, I get my email empty every day. And I did as a principal, I did as an assistant principal, but I didn't return the email immediately because people do the easiest thing. So if the easiest thing is to email the assistant principal with some dumb, dorky little question that they could have looked in the faculty handbook and found, if the easiest thing to do is email me and get a quick response, that's what they're going to do. If I get back to them later in the day, they might just look up that stupid answer on their own or ask the person, but the person in the classroom next time. You don't want email to become like ping pong where it's just back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah, it's not a communication tool. Yeah. It is an information tool.
And likewise, I tried to be respectful of other people. If there was some question, I never got on the intercom, to ask, Miss Smith, I've got a quick question for you just because it was on my mind right then. If it's on my mind, let's get it off my mind by getting it onto a memo pad or in a paper planner or into your digital task list on your phone. Put it in there to get it off your mind, because probably 5 minutes later, there's going to be something else you need to talk to the same person about. Throw that on the list. And then when the two of you get together, I can talk about the 5 or 6 things. And they can do likewise. And we don't have to keep interrupting each other all day long with one little thing. Hey, you got a minute? But a minute never takes a minute.
Of course. No, It's not even close. Especially if you let them sit down.
Yeah. And here's what the statistics show, that the average executive is interrupted, and depending on who you listen to, somewhere between 3 and 8 minutes, an interruption every 3 to 8 minutes. And that following an interruption, it takes 23 minutes to get back on track to the thing you were doing. Well, if you're interrupted every 3 to 8 minutes, and then it takes you 23 minutes to get back to where you were, you do the math, and it's a wonder you ever get anything done.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I do as a principal, first thing in the morning, as the kids are arriving, the teachers are arriving, I'd get out and just walk down the hall, and just so that every teacher knew they were going to see me coming down the hall. So if there's some little 30-second interaction that they needed, they knew they were going to have a shot at me then. And that cut down on so many of the interruptions, during their planning period and coming knocking on the door with a question. They knew they were going to see me first thing in the morning, every single morning of the world. So that one little thing all by itself, just, it built the camaraderie, and it cut down so much on them interrupting me or me interrupting them. I could get tons of stuff done just walking down the hall with a couple of things for this teacher, a couple of things for that teacher, and we got the day off and going.
Yeah, I can remember I did, once I finished, I don't remember but I was hired by a Fortune 100 company to kind of look at their processes. And one of the processes that I looked at, because they were a total technology company, was the technology in the email. And so when you talk about executives getting interrupted, I started looking at their programmers and their tech team and all the things that they were doing. They did taxes and stuff. And I sat down and I started just watching these guys that were sitting next to each other in cubicles or in desks. And literally when they had a question for each other, they would IM each other all day long. And I'm like, just ask them if they want to go to lunch. He's right there. Turn your chair around and say, can you go to lunch? And I'll think, you got to do the IM stuff. And then we started looking at email, and I realized that the C-suite guys were always emailing when they had a question. And so all of their employees were all like antsy, because if an email came in from the CEO or the CFO, they had to answer it right away. And that was happening all day long. I said, how do they have time to to program and do their stuff? I said, if it's important and it's urgent, pick up the phone, call them, and then they can answer it, not email them.
Yeah, see, I think it's so critical to decide what tools are we going to use for what. So
Yeah.
if it's something where I need an answer within the next 24, 48 hours, okay, email's great.
Yeah.
You know,
Works.
I'm going to get to my email sometime today. If you need an answer right now from me, don't email me.
Yeah.
Pick up the phone. If it's an answer that you need, if it's some little something you need to tell
That's good.
me and I need to know about it fairly quickly, or an answer that you need in the next hour, okay, a text is fine. I can kind of hear that little, I'll look at it, but I might be on the phone right then, so I
Yeah.
can get back to you. I can look at the text. Okay, when I finish this phone call, I can get back with him, and I know exactly what he wants because his text was complete enough. It's not,
Yeah.
hey, text me when you have a minute. Well,
No.
if you tell me what you need, I could be a little bit prepared. And then if you need me right now, we'll pick up the phone. If the building is on fire, don't send me a text, Pick up the phone or walk in the door. But
Yes.
match the tool to the job. Because I know people who are like, I've got, I see, turn off the email notifications, that little audible ding, turn that off. Oh no, I can't do that because my principal expects us to get right back to him. I got to stay over there close to my computer where I can hear the ding and look at it and see what it is.
No.
Well, you're not going to get anything done.
Yeah, I figured out because we took the minutes, like you said, for them, we figured it was 8 to 10 minutes to get back on task by the time, the C-suite person, if not more. So I just took that 10-minute, window that it takes to get back. And we looked at billable time of how much he's paying these employees to get back on task. And by just having them stop sending those emails, we saved him like $480,000 that year. Just on email. So I'm only going to check my email twice a day. And so everybody that I'm around knows that I'm checking my email twice a day. And so if it's something that's urgent, like you said, you better come in here or you better text me. And then I set my office up, and you can tell me this is good, where I just had a desk that was a stand-up desk in there, and I didn't have any chairs in there. And so if we had to go sit down and do something, we had to go to the conference room because people don't want to stand there.
So nobody's going to come in and sit down and put their feet up on the coffee table and have a cup of coffee. They're going to come in and do what they need to do, and then go be on their merry way, and you can get back to work as well. I love it. I love it.
If we needed to sit down and talk, there's a conference room. That's what it's for. We'll go sit down and we'll. Because there's times that we had to do an hour or two, and we had to, evaluation or something. The normal in and out of my office was in and out of my office. It wasn't, we're not hanging out. I, put other stuff in there, to be able to sit down and have fun and talk about. So, yeah, craziness.
Oh, great stuff. Yeah.
So, I love this. Or when I think about like your identity, so you're learning band, you get good at band, and now you're moving in. You're a band teacher. I did PE, so I was one of those teachers that was the extracurricular where there would be 70 kids that show up to your class instead of the 20 that are in the class are trying to learn. Right? I'm sure you had the exact same thing.
Oh yeah.
But how did your identity switch from saying, okay, I'm just a teacher, now I have to be an administrator? Were you already just kind of a natural leader that flew into, or were there some things you had to work on you in order to move into that newer role?
Well, I think there were some important lessons I learned. I don't necessarily think I was a natural born leader. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that being a leader would even be my strongest suit today. I think my real strong suit is being able to set up systems that are going to work. So I was fortunate enough. I think I had good principals all the way through, but I had two that were great. My very first one was a guy by the name of Harry Anderson. And his strong suit was support for teachers. You could talk to anybody in that school, and Harry Anderson had your back. If a parent called and something was going on, his default position was he supported you. If you were right, he supported you. If you were wrong, he supported you, but you had a conversation privately afterwards. Okay, here's how we can do this better next time. And he would always prevent problems because he was a good teacher about, if you run into this, this is a good way to solve it. Hey, and some of those early days, he'd say, come here, I got to make this phone call to this parent. I want you to hear how I handle it. He'd say, hey, this is Mr. Anderson up here at Goodwin School. We had a little problem with your son in English class today. I just wanted to call and give you a chance to handle it at home before we have to handle it at school. And he'd get off the phone. He'd say, as a parent, I'd like to have one chance to handle it at home. And then if I couldn't, I can't really blame the school for how they handle it. So, he was a great one. So when I had my own school, that was one thing I never forgot. Support good people. Now, yeah, we're in it for the kids. The kids are number one, but kids come and go. They graduate, they go to the next school. Good teachers come and stay if you can keep them. And a teacher will stay with a principal who will support them. And then the second great principal I had was Henry Clark, the one who came to Pizitz Middle School, a very high-performing middle school that he took and things. And the thing about Dr. Clark was, on the outside looking in, it looked like he just had his thumb on everything because it just ran so smoothly. But actually, no, when you got in with him one-on-one, he wanted to hear your plan. And if you had an idea of what you wanted to do with your program, you had thought it through, he'd support you. He'd listen. He'd say, Frank, when it comes to band, you're the expert. If you think we ought to do, then yeah, sounds great to me. And he was doing that across the faculty, attracting the best people that were available, and then letting good people do their job and supporting them. And he made it look easy. He made the whole thing look easy. Wow. And then what happened to him after he became, he was only with us 2 years, the central office grabbed him up, made him assistant superintendent. He was being groomed to be the next superintendent. Then when it was time to hire a new superintendent, some of the board members had changed. They said, we need to go out and find the best person in the whole country. They did a nationwide search, brought somebody in who they promptly fired a year later. In the meantime, Dr. Clark had gone and not only become a superintendent, he started a brand new system from scratch, being able to hire the principals, hire the teachers. And it became one of the most successful school systems in the state overnight. Friend of mine, I said, how are things going over in Madison City schools? He said, man, even when they mess up, they look good.
Wow. That's so cool.
But between those two gentlemen, I had enough firsthand experience of what great principals do that I was maybe able to replicate some of that.
Mm-hmm. That's so cool. So when you transition, so you're now not in education, you are now doing time management stuff. So you go from, where exactly what's going to happen every single day, all day long, to now I am an entrepreneur and I don't know what's going to happen. I don't, they're calling me up to go speak and all whatever it is that you're doing. How did that transition go for you? Was that like natural and more excited than ever, or like you had to learn some different skills and stuff, right? At least I had.
It is very different. It's actually a much easier role. Of course, the thing with the principalship was there were some things that, you know what your holidays were going to be. You knew what the school schedule was going to be. But you never knew what the day was going to bring. Yeah. When I looked at my to-do list for the day, and I always had, I want to be doing this in the morning, this in the afternoon. When the buses roll in the afternoon, I'd like to be getting. But if I looked at that list and there was something that absolutely, positively had to be done, I always started to sweat a little bit because something one parent says or does, one kid says or does, one teacher says or does can turn your entire day upside down. So I want to be doing the things today that absolutely positively have to be done by the end of the week. And I'm getting them done early. So if the day just falls apart, if something happens, like you get a phone call from one of your best parents that says, Dr. Buck, I just want to tell you, I don't know if you've heard yet, but there's something that's going on in New York. A plane has just crashed.
Oh my gosh.
Into one of the towers.
Yeah.
And then you walk into the library, and immediately what you see is plane number 2.
Yeah.
And there's your school day.
Oh gosh, your school week that week. I was at elementary school.
That was not only to do this for that day.
That was the week. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I remember I was at a junior high in California when we had an earthquake, and we were still in school. So it wasn't like, and then the parents trying to find their kids, and oh gosh.
Yeah.
So I hear you. So it's a lot different now that you're, you can kind of
the days are, again here, I never know what I never know what the day's going to bring. But, outside of a phone call that, a family member has had a serious accident, outside of something like that, whatever the day brings is going to be something good. Hey, we want you to come speak at this conference. Hey, we want you to be a guest on this podcast. And it's, I know somewhere some parent is upset because her daughter did not make cheerleader, and they're calling somebody, but they're not calling me.
Mm-hmm.
The people that are calling me to take advantage of the gifts that I have, rather than they're complaining about something that somebody else has done. So I have the greatest respect for all of those school administrators out there now, and the teachers that are out there now. It's it takes a special person. And I know it takes a special person to be a doctor. It takes a special person to be a lawyer, to be a good one, Yeah. And it takes a special person to be a teacher. It takes maybe a little different skills to be a good administrator. I know teachers who said, no, there's no way I'm taking on the headache of being a principal. And I know people that said, after 2 years, I said, give me the classroom back, because I can control what's going on in my classroom.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to control 1,000 different people and 100 different adults in that building.
Oh, absolutely. And then to even step it up more, you decided to do it at a middle school or a junior high, which is, I lasted at a junior high teaching for about 10 minutes. I mean, 1 year. I'm like, I can't. And that's when I was young and I like kids.
Yeah.
And then, now I've been coaching now for 38 years, and I still coach at a high school. But I don't have to teach at the high school. So I can go there and do the coaching stuff. But even now, I'm starting to think these kids are getting younger and younger, but they're not. They're the same age. I just keep getting older and older. They're still 14 to 18. I can't relate anymore. It's like, oh my gosh, what are you people talking about? How is, I know it's the same stories and the same things that happened, 30 years ago when I was teaching, but now you're just like, holy moly, it's just, and then, as I see the middle school, you guys are special in the world, because, the last place I was a combo middle school, high school, and I had like one class a semester that I had to do with the sixth graders. And I almost pulled my hair out, the sixth and seventh graders. I'm like, this is just, And then to be, you got the parents of them. And then nowadays, I guess the evaluations, because you kind of talked about evaluations a little bit, the evaluations have gone nutso, where it's, we're evaluating and we got to see, the certain words that you have up on the board, and, all these different things where we decided that, we got to follow every minute of every day that the teacher does. which you really
Mhm.
can't, because it's silly when you start thinking about all the things that they have to do to make it work for kids. But there's all this extra stuff with discipline and extra stuff and the way the steps you have to take before you're allowed to even send a kid to. Did you go through steps 1 through 7? Well, you're
Oh
there to
yeah.
tell them.
It's just, you've got to trust people's judgment. And
Yeah.
I know what they're doing. It's like we don't want you to send kids to the office because they don't have a pencil. We want you to go through some steps. So I found out the biggest way, the best way to handle that was, if a kid comes to the office, man, this is serious business.
Yeah.
I, if it's, I didn't want you to give him an after school detention. I just wanted you to talk to him. Well, if what he needs is somebody to talk to him, you can talk to him as the teacher. I always feel like you send someone to the office for one reason, because the consequence that you feel that young person deserves is a consequence that you as the teacher don't have the power to impose.
Yes.
So if the child does something that merits an after-school detention, and the only person who can assign an after-school detention is the principal, then I'm going to send the child to the principal to get the after-school detention.
Yeah.
Now, if we want to say, all right, now as the teacher, if you want to keep an after-school detention, I'll support you on that. Make sure the parents are notified. Guess what? Now, if the child deserves after-school detention, I'm not sending them to the office.
No, I do. Yeah.
I'm going to assign.
Yep.
It's kind of like the mother who says, don't you talk to me like that. You just wait till your father gets home. Well, who's the disciplinarian? It's dad. You got to be afraid of what dad's going to do.
Absolutely.
Until then, it's party time. Now, the mother who says, you can't talk to me that way, as she's in the process of cutting the switch herself. Now you got to be cognizant of what mother is going to do. So as a principal, I want the kids to be thinking about, if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, what's the teacher going to do? Not what's the principal going to do? Because, when the kid gets to the office, what we find out is it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz. I mean, there's just so much that the principal can do. We don't have this magic power. I want the mystery to be there. That, gosh, if I got sent to the office, what do they do up there? I don't want to find out firsthand.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you're so right. I can think. I'm thinking of all the times. Very rarely did I ever send kids for a consequence, because I could take care of most of it myself.
Yeah. And your best teachers don't.
Yeah.
Your best teachers have a plan. If the child does X, they're going to do Y, and they've already thought that out. If they don't have their supplies, if they don't have a pencil for the 5th time or whatever, this is what we're going to do. If it's a profanity, this is what they're going to do. And a lot of that, what they're going to do is they're going to talk to the parent. Yeah. And they're going to talk to the parent before the kid gets home, because whoever gets the first ear gets the best ear. Mama, that teacher was so mean to me. Well, then the parent's calling the principal. But if before that kid ever gets home, you're on the phone with the parent saying, I want to tell you what Sam did in class today. Then, and say, hey, and Sam doesn't know I'm calling you. So when he gets home, just ask him how his day was, and let's see what he tells you. So now mom already knows that he's been in trouble with the teacher. Hey, Sam, how was your day? Oh, today was great. Oh, really? You behave yourself all day? Oh, yes, ma'am. I was a
Yes,
perfect
ma'am, yeah.
all day. And see, now she knows, not only was he not perfect, but he's also lying to me.
Mhm.
So,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. Tell us a little bit about your book. I want to hear about, because now you got out of teaching, you're doing the time management stuff, you get the like I've written 3 books now, and not one president has ever called me and said, head of the publishing say, I want you to write a book with me. So yes, you have to write it. You got to get it. And so now it
yeah.
gets published, and I'm sure it's doing extremely well from even the subject matter that you're doing. I mean, what was your favorite part, I guess, about writing it, about,
Oh,
what
gosh.
you're able to do?
Well, all the way around, it was a great experience. We entitled it "Get Organized: Time Management for School Leaders," and when I that first conversation with that president of Allen Education, and he said, how long would it take you to write a book? And I said, I'm doing workshops right now that last anywhere from a half day to a full day. I could really take my workshop, put it in the format of a book. So I've pretty much got the material right now. And so that's what that first book was. Half a dozen or so years later, we just did a second edition to sort of bring some things up to date. And I tried to make it timeless, where I'm talking more about strategies and principles of time management and organization that would be eternal, rather than talking about individual tools, because individual tools can come and go. And so a book can become antiquated very quickly. So Get Organized: Time Management for School Leaders. Well, then 2020 came along. And we all remember how wonderful 2020.
Oh gosh, yes.
So the publisher, Allen Education, sold out to Routledge, a division of Taylor and Francis, somewhere along the way. So now I'm still, I'm working with Routledge. Well, the editor there called me and said, everything is. If it weren't for technology, we wouldn't be having school right now. Mm-hmm. Would you consider doing another book and just all of it, just technology, nothing but technology? I said, okay. I said, and I'm going to flip the script on this. Instead of writing something that's going to be relevant 50 years from now, because we're not talking about specific tools, I want to write one that's talking about exactly what I'm using right now,
Zoom and everything,
how you can set it up and have it today. And if something goes belly up in 6 months, it goes belly up in 6 months. I'll do a nice blog post that says, hey, this chapter in the book, this part's no longer relevant. Here's what's taken its place. And so Get Organized Digitally came out. Get Organized Digitally. The educators, what is the subtitle? The educator, Get Organized Digitally. You can get it on Amazon, but and you don't have to be an educator to use it. It's like the stories, the vignettes are all teachers and principals, but it's like, well, gosh, I'm a lawyer and I'm dealing with email. Man, this is going to be applicable for me too. Yeah. So both those are available at Amazon, and I think it's probably the best place to get it.
Oh, cool. So what, to you, if we were to say the top 3 things about getting organized or about using great time management that could help a person get going, that doesn't do a good job with time management, doesn't do a good job of being organized. I mean, I think some people are just predetermined to being super organized, and some are not. I'm somewhere in the middle there, where some things I think I'm very good at organizing. But if there were like 3 things that you could suggest to our folks here who are listening to start out with, what would those 3 things be?
Well, first of all, you have yourself some tool, whether it's paper or whether it's digital, so that as soon as a responsibility lands on your radar, it goes in that system, so that nothing is staying in your head. You know where we do the best job of that? the grocery list. We think of something we need. We don't walk around going, oh, ketchup. Next time I go to the store, got to remember to get ketchup. And also, you don't get in the car and go get ketchup right then because I do what I'm thinking about. No, you have the grocery list, you put it on the grocery list, and you earn the right to forget about it. So if you're a paper person, in 1982, when I started teaching, I always had a memo pad in my pocket. So something came up, I jotted it on that memo pad, put that memo pad back in my pocket and back to doing whatever it was. And then later in the day, I'm taking all these little slips of paper where I had written down things. And then we just put them in the order we want to do them. So I was never getting up in the morning going, got to make my list of what to do today. No, it was already made. It would just, let's put these little slips in the order that we want to do them. And now let's fast forward. It's now 2025. Instead of little slips of paper, it's throwing it in my digital task manager and going, let's put the task in this order. I want to get up tomorrow morning. I want to do this one first, this one second, this one third. Here's what I want to be doing in mid-afternoon. Here's what I want to be doing in the evening. If it doesn't, anything that doesn't get done automatically rolls over to the next day. So it's just having a system that you put things in, and then you just put them in the order that you want them to go. And tell you what's great about a digital system is all those little tasks you have to do every month or every year. Educators have tons of them. We're so cyclic. There's certain things that we do at the beginning of every school year and the end of every school year. So you put them on the list once, give it a date. When it repeats, do it, check it off. It goes away. It comes back the next time you need to do it. And you're not having to remember all these stinking little things.
Yeah. All right. So now digitally, that's the hardest thing to manage. We already talked about email and how to manage email. Are there any other things that are in our digital world that we just have to figure out? This is what I got to spend. If you're trying to organize yourself and all the different phones and calendars.
On the digital side of the house, having that good digital task list. Because see, I can even take an email. A lot of the emails you get, it's a to-do in disguise. You read it on the second paper, you're going, I need to call Tom and talk to him about this. Well, how quickly can you get call Tom on your list and somehow have access to everything in that email? So I'm able to forward an email to my digital task list. And just change the subject to call Tom, give it a date, and then delete the email because now it's over on my task list with the other tasks. And then the other side of the house is having a good notes app. Like I use Evernote. It's outstanding. Some people use OneNote if they're in the Microsoft environment. Google has Google Keep, where just information, so not necessarily documents, but just information. Because a lot of times the thing I'm looking for is not a particular document. It's that one sentence out of some conversation I had, and I'm able to search for that thing. And the ability that we have now, let's say I took notes in cursive. Now I've got a page of cursive. I can open Evernote. I can just say, new note, take a picture within Evernote. Boom. So now I got a picture of my cursive. Hit one button that says transcribe, and it's now turned it into editable digital text that I can copy and paste any portion of it anywhere else. And if I go to ChatGPT and I type in some prompt and it gives me this wonderful, here's the how to do it. I'm going, that's great. Oh, where do I put that so that I can find it when I need it? All right. Let's say copy, new note in Evernote, paste, assign it to the correct notebook. And now when I want it, I don't even have to go, let's see, what notebook would I have put that in? All I've got to know is it was something sort of about whatever, just a couple of key words about it. Search for that may be just in the middle of the note somewhere, and it's going to find it. So having a good digital to-do list and a good digital notes app You got it. The other components, of course, well, Frankie didn't say anything about a calendar. Well, I think most of us are far along with that. That enough people know, hey, Google Calendar. You need to have your calendar on your phone instead of, a big thing on your desk. And our contacts. Nobody's carrying around a leather-bound address book anymore. We've all realized your contacts need to be here on your phone, and it needs to be synced with your computer so that when you go fishing on Saturday and the boat tumps over and your phone's now at the bottom of the lake, all of your contacts aren't also at the bottom of the lake only, along with the phone.
They're in the cloud.
So I think we were there first with contacts, and then most of us are there when it comes to calendar. And then a lot of us are still sticky notes with our to-dos and then going, well, where did I write my notes? I know I wrote that down somewhere. Where's that envelope I wrote that thing on? Getting the tasks and the digital notes hitting on all cylinders. That's our challenge for right now.
Got you. I have my one selfish question that I'll ask you, because it has to do with contacts. Because you travel a lot just like I do, and you meet a whole lot of people like I do. And so I'm getting all my contacts, right? And we're not using business cards anymore, right? We're just tapping our phones to each other. We all these digital cards. Well, if I don't remember the person's name that tapped my phone, and my phone has 4,000 contacts in it, and I'm going, all right, I want to call that guy because he had something that I really like that I want to say. How do you... Because I got 4,000 contacts to go through to figure out who this person is, and I have no clue his name. I don't have a card anymore that I can, has his picture on it or something that reminds me. What do you do in these cases to make sure that right then, when you get this digital information from somebody, you've figured out how you can get back a hold of them?
Yeah. Well, if it's something where I've got their phone and the phone number's in my contacts, but there's not a name. As soon as they get more than 20 yards from me, as soon as we said, hey, it's great to meet you. Yeah. As soon as they've turned their back and they're walking away, I'm either grabbing the phone right then to go to that, that most recent contact, and I do still have a notepad because I've got to have a place for my driver's license, credit cards, medical card. So I haven't carried a wallet in my pocket in probably 25 years. So those the driver's license, those kind of things, plus a memo pad. So I've always got a place to just jot their name down. That's going to be enough that later in the day, and I go, yeah, that was the guy I met, and I just put his phone number in there. And then, of course, what I do, in addition to it being a contact, because you got a space for their name and their phone number, their address, that kind of stuff. But then, as far as any information about them, you got that one little field. I like to use Evernote.
Okay.
I've got a notebook for basically people. So, like one thing that's going to come out of this podcast is a note with your name on it. Here's the date that we recorded it. Here's the link to the, and then, if we meet for lunch sometime, once that lunch is done, I'm going to go back into that note, add the date that we had lunch, and here's a little bit about what we talked about. Yeah. If you wind up sending me this really nice thank you note, thank you so much for being on the podcast, and you send this nice handwritten note, I go, gosh, I want to hang on to that. I'm going to pull up your note, tap the camera icon, take a picture of that note. And so now that beautiful handwritten thank you note is right there in your note in chronological order. So over the years, that becomes gold. As you start to scroll back and you go, man, I met him 10 years when we had lunch together 10 years ago. Gosh, it's been that long. And here's the card I sent him when his mom died. And here's the congratulations card that he sent me. it's just it's amazing, and you
That is
can't
so
don't have
good.
room in your contacts for that. So that's why I have a notebook in Evernote, and just each person who is important in my life has their own note.
That is so cool. That's worth our hour together right now. I love it. What didn't we get to talk about that I want to make sure you get the opportunity to share with folks? Because this has been great for me. I mean, but I want to make sure that you talk about all the stuff you wanted to.
This is such a wonderful time to be alive.
Yes, it is.
We have so much at our disposal, and that's the good news. And we have so much at our disposal, and that's the bad news.
Yes.
Because at any given time, I mean, we could be scrolling cat videos all day long. The distractions are everywhere. So being able to have the system that says, all right, now here's what you decided today was going to look like. Here were your Fab Five, the most important things you're going to get to here. All right, there was your roadmap. Work the roadmap. The other will wait. And then the next day, you do the same thing so that you keep going in the direction that you wanted to go to. And you fit the other things in where they fit. Yeah, I like to watch cat videos too, especially dog videos since I'm a dog person. But let's get the important things done. Let's get the big rocks in. And there's plenty of room for the little rocks. Be sure, folks, everybody, come over to my website, frankbuck.org. Get on my email list. I am going to give you 2 free gifts. One of them's going to be getting your desk clean, because it's going to be the first chapter out of one of my books, Get Organized, Time Management for School Leaders. Going to show you my method for getting your desk clean. And then second, you're going to get an ebook that shows, I've been talking a lot about a digital task list. I'm going to show you how to set up and use Remember the Milk, which is my digital task list of choice. And it all comes to you free, just for getting on my email list.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Well, Dr. Frank, it's been such an incredible joy to have you on the call.
Same here.
Sometimes, I don't talk to a lot of educators anymore, just because I'm doing the podcast and doing all that. But to go back and to think about all those things that an organized teacher should be, the things that I should be using and the things that I should be, knowing to use and doing, and just a great reminder of all those things. I can't wait to get a copy of your book. I can't wait to jump. I'm going to frankbuck.org and I'm getting myself a desk organizer. And oh my gosh, I can't wait to just see all the things you're doing. I can't wait for the new book. And I don't know if you started it yet, but it's Organization Using AI, because I know that's got to come up at some point.
You've almost read my mind, because I've got to get something out there, because that's such a wonderful tool.
Oh my God. It's a tool that I'm using every day, most of the day, and it's saving me a whole bunch of time. But I also don't want to fill up the time with just filling up other stuff that isn't productive, right? If I'm going to save myself time, I can't just put a whole bunch of nonsense back into that time when I can. And so, so just thank you for being on. And for those of you who are watching, go ahead. If this is your first episode you've ever watched, go ahead and hit the notification button, the subscribe button. There are many, many episodes that are just like this, that are just great people that are teaching us how to do stuff that makes our life better. My goal is to help the people become the person that they need to be, the way that God put them on this earth to do. And so if we can do that, if we can help you have your life better, now have your life better organized, you are in the right place at the right time. And Frank has shown us. I hope you go back, you watch the episode, you click pause, you write stuff down, take advantage of doing as much of that as that you need to. And we'll look forward. I believe that you're God's greatest gift, and He loves you if you allow Him to. And I can't wait to see you on the next one. Frank, do you have any one last closing thought that you'd love to share?
Life does not have to be as hard as we sometimes make it. Have a good system, work the system, enjoy life.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. We'll look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Have a great day.